We'll do now the fourth parak in Bava Kama, parak Dalet, and we're learning Lilu Nishmas Levi Yitzchok ben Reb Chaim Tzvi, a dedicated, successful shliach who was unfortunately taken on the prime of his life, and we're learning this to benefit his soul with Zecher Nishmasoi and Tehei Nishmasoi Tzrura B'Tzrura Chaim. We'll do Mishnah Aleph. Zog the Mishnah shoyr shenogach arbo v'chamisha shvorim ze achar ze. We're talking about an ox which is a tam, and a tam only pays 50%, and also pays migufa. He pays from the body itself. In other words, he doesn't have to pay for money that he owns, only to the extent not to exceed the value of the actual animal. So in this case, you had a ox that gored arbo v'chamisha shvorim zachar zeh, 4 or 5 oxen, one after the other, belonging to different people. The question is, how do you pay out the payments in this case? Dr. Bartenura, shoyer shenogach arbo v'chamisha, that the ox that gored 4 or 5. So the Rabbatanura explains that do bikulam hoyatam the mishalem migufi, that for all the damages, he was a tam the mishtalem migufi, that he pays from the body. So the issue is you're not to exceed the amount of money of the ox that did the goring. You're never going to pay more than that, because nobody has to pay from the owner doesn't have to pay, or nobody has to pay from their own. You only pay migufe. And here is what the issue is. And what's happening is here, as the Gemara explains, the Bartanura brings down. So the first person, let's say Reuben, has the ox, and he gores first Shimon's ox, and then after he gores Shimon's ox, Shimon goes and gets hold of the ox of the gorer, because you pay from the ox itself. So the ox of Reuben that gored was taken by Shimon, and Shimon is holding on to that ox to get the payment of his half a damage, because it's a tam. So say that Shimon's ox was worth $200. So Shimon is owed $100, and he takes the ox for its value to collect the $100 from it. Now the question is over here is, once he grabs hold of the ox, once Shimon took hold of the ox, so then Shimon becomes, this is the question, according to the first opinion, Shimon becomes like responsible for that ox. So anything else the ox does, if the ox continues to gore after Shimon held on to the ox, that's already Shimon's issue. He is the only one responsible, because he grabbed the ox to collect his payment from that ox. So the first Tana, the Tana in the Mishnah, holds that is just his responsibility, Shimon's responsibility. Reuven, the original owner of the ox, so when Shimon grabbed the ox, he owed him $100. So Reuven has $100 in the ox. That's not going to change. It doesn't matter that later on, when Shimon grabbed this ox and then it gored Levi's ox, Reuven is out of the picture, because Reuven gets his 100. Shimon, who grabbed Reuven's ox to collect his payment, becomes the owner. So then if that ox goes and gores Levi's ox, so then it's only Shimon's issue, and Shimon has 100 in this ox, because the other 100 remains with Reuben, and Shimon will have to pay from his part 100 the Chatzi Nezek, and so on to the next one. Whoever holds on to the ox to collect the payment is the one responsible for there, and therefore he will end up losing. We'll see in a second the Bartanura. But Rabbi Meir, he disagrees. He says, no, I mean, this is Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He says that even though Shimon, or the one who was damaged, grabbed hold of the ox, and the same thing later on, it's all the same scenario, still Reuven and Shimon are partners. And therefore, when they're going to pay to Levi, it's not going to be just out of Shimon's part of the ox, it's also going to be out of Reuben's part. Let's say, and there's a lot of words, let's put the words into the Mishnah and the way the Bartanura explained it. So again, Yishalim la'achrein shabohem. So the Mishnah says he has to pay the last one, the last Yishalim la'achrein shabohem, you pay the last one that was gored. The last one that was gored gets his half of damages. He gets his damages fully covered. And then we'll start going back. It's not going to affect the original owner. He gets his half, and it's never going to affect the original owner because the last owner remains responsible for the damages. Let's look in the Bartanura. Yishalim la'acharin shabahem. So the ox that gored the 4 or 5, you have to pay the last one, meaning everybody else will lose out, even though your ox scored the first one, the second one, the third one. Only the last one will get paid, and the other ones will lose out. What is the case? So let's look in the Bartanura. The Gemara Muki Lemasnisin, the Gemara interprets the Mishnah. Kigoin she Tofsei Nizak L'Shoir Hamazik Ligveis Mimeno. The Nizak, we call him Shimon. Shimon was damaged by Reuven's ox. So in order to collect his damages from Reuven's ox that gored his ox, Shimon's ox, he grabbed hold of the ox. The Tovsi Nizak, L'Shoir Hamazik, he grabbed the Nizak, the Shir Hamazik, Mimena to collect from him. And when he grabs it, Vinasa Olav Shemer Sachar. So he becomes a Shemer Sachar. He becomes the guard. He's now responsible for whatever happens, whatever the ox does. If the ox now that he grabbed hold of is going to gore another one, that's now his responsibility because he's a Shemer Sachar. He grabbed it to collect his payment, and now the watching of that ox is his responsibility. He is now the one that has to deal with the damages, not the Reuven, the original owner. He's no longer responsible because this is Reb Meir's opinion. The first one is no longer responsible because now the responsibility is Shimon, because Shimon grabbed a hold of that ox to collect from it. And now that it goes out from Shimon, the ox that he was supposed to watch because he grabbed it and he was supposed to collect from it. So now once it leaves his hand and it goes and damages the ox of Levi, so therefore Hanizak Harishin, Shimon, who was the first one damaged, he is the one that's Chayiv ben Nizakov, that has to pay the damages for Levi's ox, not Reuven, because it's no longer Reuven's responsibility. Lefikoch, and therefore, Ha'achrein mishtalim chetzi nizkoin misholim. So the latter one will get paid his complete half of nezek, complete, because uh, Shimon cannot hold back any amount. I mean, if it's more than a chatzi nezek, he doesn't have to pay, as we'll see in a minute. But if half a nezek of Levi's ox equals the amount that Shimon had in the ox, which is 100 in our example, if it doesn't exceed that, then the Levi will get the entire damages and Shimon will get nothing. However, v'im yesh by moiser, which means that once you can satisfy the damages that the ox did to Levi's ox, and Levi will get half of the damages for his ox from the part that Shimon owned in the ox from the 100, and there's still leftover money in the ox for Shimon, then Shimon will keep that part. So the part Shimon is able to keep the part that is leftovers, but the 100 that Ruvain gets, that's not touched because he's no longer responsible. The only responsibility now is the part that Shimon has in the ox. If the ox only has enough to satisfy or less than Levi's half a damage, then you'll give him that everything goes to Levi. But if after satisfying Levi's half a damage, there is still money left, so still the original will get the 100, but he'll get the difference. So the yesh by moiser yachzir l'shalafanav taich the bartanura. Hachikama. This is what he's saying. Im yesh by moiser benizokov. If there is extra in the damages, there is still left over in the damages of Shimon. He had damages, and there's still money left over from his damages. So then he'll get that. That should go back. Or I'm sorry, Moise ben Nizokov. If there's left over from the Nizokov of Levi, so once we satisfied Levi's Nizokov, there's still money left over. And he gives the example. Going, for example, Shachatzi Nizkoi Shel Harisha in Hoyamona. So Shimon's half of damages of his ox was a money. His ox was valued 200, and half of the damages that he's entitled to when Reuven's ox scored him was 100. B'chatzi nezek ha'achrein, and how much was the damages, half of the damages of the Levi, the last one? We're saying about 3 people here, but the same thing is more people, but in 3 people. If his damages was hoyo chamishim, so therefore, it was 50. And now the ox that is valued over here, how much is the ox value? What could we take from here? Basher Shova Mosayim. And the ox is, so there's 200 to collect from here. So mitchilo kshenogach shoir zeh, shoir shal nizikarishan. The beginning, when Reuven's ox gored the ox of the first damage of Shimon, Shechatzi Niskei Moneh, who has half as a moneh, so he owes him 100. This ox is supposed to pay Shimon 100. Hoyel the Nizek B'shoyer Zeh Moneh, so the Nizek had this ox a moneh. Uliba Oli Moneh, and the owners had a moneh. Now, Kshetovse HaNizek, now that the Nizek grabbed hold of the ox, and while he was in charge, it gored. The bailim, the owners, don't have to lose the money that they had. They're no longer responsible. Because the guarding of this ox was not on the original owners. Now it's Shimon who grabbed it. But on Shimon who grabbed it. And now that he hits the second nizak, he hits gores Levi's ox. V'hoyo chatzi nizkei chamishim, and now his nizak is chamishim. So that's called the moiser. So the ibid and nizak harishim in amona shalei chamishim. So the first nizak loses from his 100 that he originally had in the ox 50. He gives him his half of damages, which is 50. The hamoiser ad hamona, and the left over after satisfying the damages of Levi, choizer loy. That goes back to him. The Bailim take their money. Originally, they get their part. The im yesh boy moiser, if there is still left over, and that's talking about this. We're talking about 3. But what happens if 4? The same thing will be by 4. The last one gets his full damages from the one who has to guard the ox. And anything left over after satisfying the last one goes back to the one before him. And if there is still enough to satisfy one before, you go back. Bailim, you go even before him. Meaning the last one is the one that gains. The last one that was gored, he gets his full half a nezek, and then you keep on giving. If it's left over, you give. We're talking about a case of Yehuda, who's the 4th one. If Yehuda has extra, we'll give Levi. If Levi is satisfied, we'll go back to Shimon. That's the way he goes. But Reb Shimon disagrees. Reb Shimon believes, even though he grabbed the ox, he remains a partner. The Bailin, original owner, and the Nizak Rishon, or always with the other one, everybody becomes a partner. You're not alone. When that ox gores, after you grabbed hold of him, then you are actually all partners. And therefore, when we're deducting, we're not going to keep, the first one is not going to get the whole thing. Nobody's going to get the whole thing. Everybody is a partnership, so it's not going to be the last one benefiting, but everybody from who's part of it. Let's look inside. Will have to participate. Reb Shimon Oimer Chulu. Reb Shimon Sova Shutfi Ninu, that they are partners. Habailim v'hanizak b'sheir hamazik. Both the owner and the one who was hurt in this ox that mazik. Ushneim is chayim b'nizokov, and they're both liable for the damages. And therefore, Ketzad, how so? So let's look now at the case like this. So if you have a Shoir Shavim Mosayim, Shenogach Shoir Shavim Mosayim. So Ruvain's ox was worth 200. Igor's Shimon's ox, which was also worth 200. Ve'ein hanevela yofa klum, and there is no value to the carcass that was killed, not worth anything. So therefore, Ruvain owes Shimon 100 from this ox. Zen noitel mone. So we go and we sell the ox, and Reuven, the owner, gets 1 money. The ox that gored, that Reuven's original ox, he's going to get 100 zenek money. So now, now the Reuven's ox goes and gores Levi's ox, also worth 200. So the last one, ha'acharein, because the 2 of them are both responsible now for the damages. So he's going to get his 100 from the ox, from Reuven's ox that gores. But now, since Reuven and Shimon are both responsible, Reuven had 100 and Shimon had 100, and they're both responsible. He's going to get 100 Levi. 50 is going to come from Reuven, and 50 is going to come from Shimon because they're partners, they're both. So the last one will take 100. The Shalafonov and the one that before him, which means Levi, the first Shimon, the first Nizak, and Reuven, the owners, Zen Neitel Chamishim Zuz, and as a Neitel Chamishim Zuz. Each one will take 50 from the ox. Once you sell the ox, Reuven, the owner, will take 50, and Shimon, the first Nizak, will take 50. They both had 100 in it, and now they're partners in the damages. So Levi got 100, and Reuven will have to give 50, and Shimon will give 50. The Shalafonov Zaktrashi Zen Nizak Rishon. That's the first one damage. That is we call him Shimon. Neitel Chamishim Zuz. When you sell the animal, will take 50. Va'bailim, and the owners will take Chamishim Zuz. The Yesh L'Nizak Rishon Boi Hachetzi, because the first Nizak has in this ox that gored now, Levi's ox, he owns half of the ox now because he had to pay him. Chetzi's a partner in it. So he has a chatzi. Hilkoch mishalim chatzi tashlumei niskoi. That's why Shimon also has to pay half of the damages that the ox that he owns in partnership with Reuven, that he did damage. You have to pay part. So he pays 50. Shimon pays 50, and Reuven pays 50. What happens now? So now we got in a new partner here. Now Levi is also a partner in this whole situation now. The minute that he is grabs the ox, he's also a partner because I'm not sure. He doesn't say that he grabbed it, but I'm assuming that it's also grabbed. Maybe it would be a partner even without it. But so now Chazar v'nogach shoyr achar shavim masayim. So you go another ox which is worth 100. So the other person will get the 100, and the previous people. So Levi had in the ox 100, right? So he will end up giving 50% of his part. Everybody will pay half of their part. So Levi that owned 100, the Yehuda is going to get 100 because he was gored. Half of his damage is 100. But how is it going to be paid out? So Levi, who owned in the ox 100, will give 50. And Reuven and Shimon, which owed 50 in the ox, each one will give 25. Let's look inside. The last one takes 100. He takes half from whoever it is. He doesn't care who it is. Whoever owns the ox, he gets a half. So therefore, he will get 100. The megufe mishtalim, you pay from the body, so we don't care. You take from the ox, so whoever owns it, v'nimtza. Oiso shalafon of the one that was before. The last one is Yehuda. The one that was before was Levi. Shahoya chetzi shaloi. Half of what belonged to him because of the money, his damages. He owned chatzi. He pays a half of money that the other one takes. The other one takes 100. That's Levi takes 50 zuz. And the first two ones, the Reuven and Shimon, which is the Nizik Rishon v'Habayim. Each one had only a quarter, because as we said before, of the whole ox, this one had 50 and this one had 50. Before they gored, Reuven had 50, Shimon had 50, and Levi had 100. And that was their partnership in this ox. So now that 50 would be, each one had a 50, which means each one had a quarter. Reuven and Shimon had a quarter, Levi had a half. And Mishalmin kol echad revi is shel niskei. So the first two will pay a quarter Each one will pay 25 Ruvain, 25 Shimon, 50 Levi, and that's 100. And Levi and Yehuda will get the 100. Dinar Zov. A Dinar Zov, the Patanora, Shem Esrim Chamisha, Dinrim, 25 Dinrim. It's a little complicated, but I think it's pretty clear. You chapped it, Moti?
Yeah, it's but one thing that you didn't talk out, maybe I don't know if you said it, that how does a Tam manage to do 3, 4, 4 or 5?
Because they weren't made in him in between. So they want, how do you gore 5, 4, 5 without becoming a mud? I'm surprised about Nuna doesn't mention that. But the Gemara says that it was in a way that there was no Hados Eidim. I think it's hinted right in the Lashon of the Gemara, Shenokach Shoyer Zachar Zeh. I think what's the Lashon exactly over there? It was Zachar Zeh, that it was one after the other. How's the Lashon? Zachar Zeh. Zachar Zeh means that there was no time to go to Beis Din, and therefore it didn't become a time. We'll leave it over here.
Yeah.